Webheads, comic fans, true believers, welcome to another episode of Worthy Ones, the video series where I take all the newest issue ones that I read for the comic book week and deem them worthy or not worthy. Guys, I'm Mike Spider-Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. Before we get started, I just gotta give a quick shout out to a new Kickstarter that's about to launch. This newest Kickstarter is done by JW Storytelling. This is called The Legend of Kaiden. Guys, this story is set roughly 18 years before the main story. This opening tale follows our future main characters' parents on the harrowing night that drove them from their home. Step into a world full of swords, mystics, war, and ultimately home for a brighter future. So guys, if you love independent comics, if you want to support independent creators, go check out Legend of Kaiden. This is their pre-launch page, so just bookmark it so when it launches, you can back it. Alright guys, so let's get started. The first book we're going to talk about is from Scout Comics. This is Drexler. This is issue 1. Just a warning, at any time you could be spoiled when I discuss these new #1 issues. Something could be spoiled, something could not be spoiled. So if you don't want to take that chance, read your comics first and then come back and watch the video. So here we go. The creator of this book is Bob Sally. Artist is Nathan Kelly. When you take a look at this artwork, it's not bad. It's very dark. I feel like it is heavy on inks. There's some crazy creatures that are created in this book and whatnot. But it was just a book for me where the artwork was okay. It didn't blow me out of the water. And Scout Comics tends to have some books that are okay, some are very rarely great in my opinion, but there's been a few, right? So what this book is about is we're in this town. It's called Marvin, and it's just an isolated town at the edge of nowhere. And then there's this sheriff. Her name is Kara, and she's facing this crisis where there's 3 missing girls, okay? And she doesn't know what to do. They're slaughtered, one is missing, and so she reaches out to the only person that could help her, and this is like her half-brother, and he knows how to deal with these situations because he's like this monster hunter or whatnot. And that's basically what the issue was. I mean, there was nothing here that was groundbreaking that got me really excited, and this book was overpriced for what it was. This was a $6 comic book for your normal like 32 pages or whatever it was, right? There was no character in here that I found that was unique, that I could get attached to, and it was just kind of disappointing. You know, when you read the synopsis of this comic, you're like, oh, this really sounds interesting, and maybe you could gravitate towards this. But again, the characters were all over the place, the dialogue was all over the place, and this was just a disappointing comic. So at the end of the day, I'm going to deem this book not worthy. Yeah, guys, stay away from this book. Overpriced for what it was, and I'm going to give a grade a D for this comic book. This was pretty bad in my opinion, and definitely not worthy of checking out a second issue. Supermassive 2023 edition. We got introduced to all these different characters last year, like Dead Lucky, the 2 Radiant Blacks by the name of Nathan and Marshall. We got Rogue's son, and we get a little bit more in this book, okay? Our writers in this one are Kyle Higgins, Ryan Parrott, Matt Groom, and Melissa Flores. This book was actually pretty fun. I enjoyed it. This time around, we have our heroes that come together and they go after what is called the Holy Grail, right? We all know what the Holy Grail is. It's something that gives you, massive power and things like that, right? The artwork in this book is actually pretty good. I loved all the characters in this book. They all had their own little time to shine, which you could appreciate while you're reading the story. There was some comical moments, and if you're reading your respective stories in Image's superhero universe, you kind of get what's going on. However, there is a but. Based off of what's going on in these main series, they kind of hint at that in this issue, and it makes this story kind of feel out of place because if you definitely read Radiant Black, you were left with the last issue with this cliffhanger about them having to choose who the next Radiant Black is going to be, who's going to possess in that power. And it's like they pause from that to deal with this situation, right? And same with Dylan in Rogue Sun. There was this huge cliffhanger that he couldn't get his body back, and in this issue he's acceptant of his body, him not having control of his body, and that was also left with that huge cliffhanger. So I had a little bit of an issue, continuity issue with the story there. So however, if you set that aside, this adventure that our heroes go on is a lot of fun. Again, retrieving this holy grail, and you wind up getting the outcome if they do get this holy grail or not, and what's it for. And then there's like a post-credit scene at the end of this that shows a character that you would never expect, which I really appreciated and had my head scratching. I'm hoping that they do more supermassive books in the future, because I think it's fun to get these characters together at least once a year. And for the price point of $6 and 50 pages, to me, that's worth the $6 price point, unlike the Drexler comic that I just talked about previously. So I'm going to deem this book worthy, absolutely worthy. This is so much fun. This is just a comic adventure that takes you out of your element, and you got to appreciate the artwork, that great credit scene at the end. Don't skip it. And if I had to grade this book, I got to give it a B. But I can't help but just think about the cliffhangers at their own respective series on how they kind of play into this book, and it's just like forgotten for a minute. It's kind of weird, but nevertheless, it's a great story. Street Fighter 6. This is issue 1. $6 comic. 48 pages, not bad for the page count, right? When you check out the artwork was okay. There wasn't a lot of characters featured in this comic book. It was more just like Ken Masters, and that was basically it. And he's not even fighting. He's retired, but he's in charge of the, committee of, creating tournaments. And he wants to create a new fighting tournament in the city-state of Nashal, and he goes to their homeland and basically asks permission, and they grant him this permission, right? And they come across the arena and how the referees are going to look and things like that. And really what's going on is the town is protesting of this tournament that's going to be here, right? They're not accepting it, and all of a sudden you wind up seeing these protesters shoot down Ken's car, and then there's this big accident at the end. But there's actually no fighting. There's no other characters in this book except like his little son Mel, and I just found it kind of boring. It's like, man, it's like when I pay $6 for a comic and I get it's 48 pages long, I want some Street Fighter action, baby. I don't even care if it's a flashback or future characters or something like that. I did not get anything out of that. So with that being said, I'm going to deem this book not worthy. No, guys. For $6, I need something more, something that's really going to hook me to pick up the second issue of this. There could be fighting at the end, or there could be fighting in the second or third issue, but you know what? They should have done something in the first issue to really capture me here. If I had to grade this comic book, I'm going to give it a C-. It wasn't a horrible read. I just found myself wanting a lot more, and it just doesn't hit that mark quite enough for me to continue. Daredevil Echo. This is issue 1, written by Taboo and B. Earl. The artwork is done by Phil Noto. The artwork is serviceable here. I do feel like at times it was like a little bit 2D. It wasn't the greatest, but it was fine for what it was. It's a Daredevil book, so at times it's very dark, which you can expect from the comic book, and the characters looked fine in it. It was nothing, again, that just blew me out of the water, but again, it was just fine, okay? Now, when it comes to the story here, the story takes place in 2 different time periods. It takes place in present day, and it takes it takes place in the past, where we deal with the ancestors of Matt Murdock, right? And there's murders happening here, and it's a serial killer. So we wind up seeing the serial killer do the same thing over and over again. So there's like a pound of flesh mission from the victim, the spleen is taken out, and we get to see Elektra and Daredevil kind of work together to try to find out who this is. And it's the same thing that happens in Matt Murdock's ancestors. They try to find out the murders as well. Now, I felt that this book was a little bit jarring at times when they went constantly back and forth, and what drove me crazy was Matt Murdock's ancestors have this southern accent, so they talk in this slang, and it just found it weird when I'm like reading it to myself, and I'm like, dude, I can't even understand what this guy is saying, right? But they come across this little girl. When she opens up her mouth, she basically like screams, and we see Echo trying to talk to her, and I'm like, okay, where are we getting at with this comic book, right? But it wasn't until the last page, the very last page, where it finally hooks you, and you're like, there you go. There is the person that you've been waiting for this entire time, is Demogoblin. I never thought that character was going to show up. I thought it was just like a cover grab, right? And then I was going to be like, okay, well, there's absolutely no way I was going to continue this. But at the end of the day, I'm going to deem this book worthy because there was a hook at the end. I want to see the mystery continue. What's Demogoblin's involvement from the present day and into the past, how it all connects. So that was the hook for me at the very end. So I'm going to grade this book a C+. I thought this was good. It could have been better. It took too long to get to the point. I can see people reading this and going, man, where are we going with this? I'm done. I'm not going to read it anymore. Because some people read so many comics that they don't have the patience to read the whole comic book, right? So I'm so curious to hear what you guys think about this one in the comments below, but I'm going to continue this book. Fury, issue 1. Now, Nick Fury is popular for a lot of people because he was in the MCU. He's been in the comics for years, and we're going to get the show coming out very soon. What, Secret Invasion, I think we're getting on Disney+. So I can see why people want to pick this book up. It's written by Al Ewing as well. And we get both Furies in here. We get Nick Fury Sr., you get Nick Fury Jr., which was kind of cool. You get some of the supporting cast like Jasper Sitwell. You get Scorpio, which is the villain in this book. Yatu, which is the Watcher. You got Dum Dum Duggan in there. So there's a lot of characters in this comic book. Excuse me. And the artwork is really cool in this book too. There's a lot of action in this book. It's just a lot of fun to look at visually. And we get to see times when Nick Fury Sr. is in that cool spacesuit from like the original volume. It just reminds you of, you know, old school Marvel comics. There's even a time in this comic book where it all takes place in the 40s, which is awesome too. And there's one point in time in this comic where you wind up seeing Nick Fury trying to dig up files of his father through old Marvel comics, which that is brilliant in my eyes. So I thought this book was a lot of fun, and it hits all the notes of what comics used to be for Marvel Comics, right? So this was awesome. What was the story about in this comic? Well, basically, again, it's Nick Fury Jr. dealing with Scorpio, and he's trying to find out the history of this villain. And again, that's what he does. He goes into the files of Nick Fury Sr. and he reads all these old stories. And that's basically what the comic is, man. It's just a lot of fun. You learn about the character from the 40s and the 60s and stuff like that. So if you have the money for this comic, I know it's $6, but it's 52 pages, and if you love like old school Marvel storytelling, this is where it's at, man. So I'm gonna deem this book worthy. Definitely a lot of fun, something different this week out of your pile. And if I graded this book, I would grade this one an A-. This was a great read. Okay, here we go. Storm issue 1. All right. I'm just going to reiterate 1,000 times. If you love this comic book or you want to continue it, I have nothing against you, okay? Trust me, if you love a comic book, that's what's so great about this hobby. Continue to read it, enjoy it for all it's worth. For me, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm deeming this not worthy. And if I graded this comic, I'm going to give it an F. And this is no disrespect to the creators, the artists, and things like that. This is just my opinion. I'm a guy on YouTube that reads comics and just shares their opinion with everybody else. And if you agree with me, you agree with me. And if you don't, you don't. But for me, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but this is the worst comic I have read all year. I did not like this comic at all. The artwork in this book was just, maybe at times it was mediocre at best. Like, look at Professor X here. He's working out with dumbbells in his chair, and there's these random battles going on. And here in one panel, you wind up getting Storm, who actually looks really good, but then you got her as a little kid that just looks real awkward. Kitty Pryde just looks like such a little girl in this comic book, and it's just weird, man. And then you get introduced to the newest villain in this comic. I think his name is like, what is it, Blowback or something like that? And he just looks super creepy. Like you can't even make out the details in him or whatnot. And this is a first appearance of a villain, so people might think this is a spec book. You got Kitty Pryde, who hangs out with Rogue in this comic book, and she's like rebelling, and she gets like tattoos of mermaids. And it's just like, mermaids, out of all things, why would she get a tattoo of that? But Storm gives her crap about having these mermaids on her arms because it labels her and it makes her distinctive of who she is. She's a freaking X-Men. She wears a big X on her uniform. Isn't that a label in itself? Like, that didn't make any sense to me when I read that, right? And it's just like, again, look at Professor X's face. Come on, what is that, dude? But what this book is, it's about Storm, who is just recently a leader, okay? And she's trying to get control of the X-Men. And she's trying to gain their respect. And you would say that she probably has respect of most of the players out there, or most of the team out there. But, you know, there's kind of Wolverine, who does his own thing, and you got, you know, Rogue, who's going out and partying, and she's taking Kitty Pryde with her, and you know, and Storm is all over Kitty's ass about everything. And then you get to see that relationship between, you know, Colossus and Kitty, and Kitty's so drawn like a little kid. It's like disturbing that they're with each other. It's just awkward in every way, shape, or form, and it's just constant bickering through the entire comic, like arguing back and forth, and you're just like, oh my god, shut up. Like, what is the point of this comic book? And then she doesn't have control of her powers because she gets lost in the ocean somewhere, and then she's like struggling to get out, and they're just like, whatever, we're just gonna play in the sea or in the ocean and have some fun. It's just a weird comic book all the way around. I just could not appreciate this book. I didn't care about the villain. It's just he shows up out of nowhere, and it's just a weird story. And with that reason, I'm just not going to continue it. I don't know what I was expecting here, but I was expecting something much more than this. This is not taking place in any continuity. This is a story that takes place, again, back 30, 40 years ago when Storm has this mohawk and things like that. This was just an underwhelming comic book all the way around. I'm sorry if I disrespect anybody out there that created this comic book that might watch this review, but I'm sorry. It's not a very well put together comic. So unfortunately, with that being said, I'm going to pass on the next issue, and hopefully for the readers out there that continue this does get better for you. So we do have one more comic to talk about, and this is a book that came out back in the Silver Age of comics, and this goes to Invincible Iron Man. This is issue 1, the facsimile edition. That's right, guys, written by Stan Lee. What a great comic book, man. This just brings you back to those days of Marvel when they were first getting started. All the stories were so original. This facsimile edition even has all the original ads in it. So it is literally like you are reading the very first issue of Invincible Iron Man, so you could appreciate those good old days. The artwork is actually a lot of fun, and being that it is on modern day paper, it does make the comic a lot more bright and vibrant to actually read. You got to appreciate the dialogue that Stan Lee puts in this comic, and for a older comic where you see a lot of them that has a lot of dialogue, this one doesn't have all that much dialogue, and the storytelling here is so imaginative and so creative by Stan Lee. You can picture him just telling you this story, his voice in your head, as we wind up getting to see Iron Man do battle against AIM, and we get to see SHIELD agents involved and old villains involved in this comic book. And what they try to do is they try to clone the Iron Man armor so all the AIM agents can actually wear it and overtake the world or destroy Iron Man. And you get to see all these crazy and cool battles that happen in the comic, and again, it was just a lot of fun. So yeah, guys, I gotta go out there and tell you that this book is worthy. So if there is a facsimile edition that you're looking to collect, or you can't get your hands on an original Iron Man issue 1 and you want to read the first issue, go out and pick this up. I'm gonna give this book an A+. I had so much fun going back in time and reading this, and at the end of the story you get the origin tale of Iron Man himself, which we all know that origin tale already, but it's cool to actually read it. And the only thing I must say though is that this previous story takes place in, I think, Tales of Suspense issue 99 or something, and then you get the continuation of this here in issue 1. But nevertheless, just a lot of fun and a great book to add to your collection. So there you guys have it. There are my worthy ones of the week. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And if there's any that I left out, please leave it in the comments below. And of course, guys, if you want to subscribe to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Check out my content right here. In fact, I got one of these videos here that is my newest comic book day haul video where I show you everything I picked up at the comic shop. And of course, guys, keep buying, keep collecting, but more importantly, always read those comics. I'll see you real soon. Bye.